Today, we're going to take a look at wholesale pricing as everything is kind of declining. Maybe you've noticed on the retail level, some of the pricing kind of coming down. That's not just from Croptober or harvest season. This is big going on. You may have heard about California stopping taxes, just to kind of allow some of these companies to catch up. All of the robberies and everything in California specifically hurting the industry. But this has been going on for a long time. Started way back in May and then all the way through August. The last 4 or 5 months, we've seen it on the retail level. So we're going to dive into a report up on the wholesale level of what's happening and why prices are declining, all coming up.
It's only entertainment.
Welcome back to the Talking Hedge. I'm Josh Kincaid, capital markets analyst and host of your Cannabis Business Podcast. We'll start looking at the California market, and then we'll zoom back out and look at the whole broader wholesale, kind of just see what's happening in California at the retail level. We're kind of seeing that essentially there was a letter sent by industry leaders asking for an immediate suspension of the cultivation tax placed on growers. The article goes on to say that the opportunity to create a robust legal market has been squandered as a result of excessive taxation, and that 75% of cannabis in California is consumed in the illicit market and is untested and unsafe. So rather than watch the California economy kind of fall further into chaos as more CVS and Rite Aids leave California and close down because of the rioting and looting, store thefts that are kind of planned, all of those reasons are kind of more of an opportunity, I guess, to try and save the cannabis industry that's bringing in a lot of revenue for California while they're trying to figure out all of these other issues. But back to the main question at hand, which is why is wholesale pricing declining? So I mentioned early on that this isn't really about seasonality. So it's not about Croptober. It's not about necessarily about oversupply from harvest season. Typically, we could see anywhere from 10 to 30% price declines during that seasonality. But that's not necessarily the case because this happened. We were seeing this in May, and then in August, it was definitive. In the last 5 months before harvest season, it was already bad. So we could end up seeing more people just use that as one more excuse to kind of get out of the industry. We were seeing, 1 million grams for about, 7 cents a gram, maybe even cheaper. So people are kind of getting out of the game, selling their entire harvest and then just walking away. This also isn't about the states. There's a lot of onboarding. You see Illinois with crazy numbers, long lines, high prices, all of that. This isn't about simple supply of economics of supply and demand. This is more about a broader issue. It's a global macroeconomic issue. It's not just transitory inflation. This is a huge shift in behavior and consumer preferences and how they're responding. Again, if you change your preferences on vice, on the things that that you use frequently, then there's probably a lot of other things that you cut way back on before you got to this point. So if people were doing this in May, they were already cutting way back on everything else that's not considered a vice for probably months before that, during the 2020 pandemic. So this has been going on for quite a while. Other issues with supply and demand that this isn't really about. It's not about the fires on the West Coast. This isn't about again, new states onboarding and having that supply shortage initially. It's not really about any of those factors or cross-state competition or any of that. So what we saw basically since COVID is that cannabis was deemed essential. And more people are working from home, not working at all. And so basically that quantitative easing of just printing money from stimulus checks and trillion-dollar packages, you're seeing consumers buying a lot of cannabis from that. Some of those stimulus checks have stopped since pandemic, and maybe as a result, people aren't going into work. Maybe they're fearful of COVID. Maybe they decided not to get vaccinated for whatever reason. And so there's this huge kind of shift in the marketplace. Since May, Colorado, for example, flower prices have decreased 40% from $1,300 a pound down to $775. Medical, I think, has dropped at least 25% in sales at the retail level. And we're going to do a retail report completely separate from this wholesale report. So I'm going to try to keep that distinguished or separate. So asking the question, could this have been prevented? So in terms of COVID, obviously not. Being deemed essential is probably the best thing for the industry. You saw other places ban alcohol sales. You didn't see that with cannabis. So in terms of the image, that was a positive. So lessons learned could have been that market fluctuations were pretty crazy. You saw Nevada completely swing, losing a lot of consumers because of the lack of tourism. Washington was one of the most stable markets in Washington state because been around for a while, didn't have any issues, where a lot of other states kind of were dependent upon tourism. Washington state has a zero budget for tourism. Literally, we don't pay for tourism. That's why everyone will go to Vancouver, BC for making movies about Seattle. It's because Vancouver, BC will give them a tax credit. So anyways, a lot of these producers and processors could have seen this with the data. We track every single month what the retail sales look like, and that's a lagging indicator. Wholesale would be a leading indicator, and that's kind of what this report would be from both BDS at the retail level and then Apex at the wholesale level, and getting that whole picture kind of gives you the best idea of what's going to happen. The data as it is would give you the kind of market fluctuations, kind of being able to see other states and what's happening for sales year over year, changes, trends, anomalies, anything from brand concentration to number of transactions, and looking at it again from different marketplaces and then asking the question, why? So there's definitely been businesses that kind of like cultivators, they make these knee-jerk reactions. You see in Canada where they overproduce and then have to give away these massive amounts of greenhouses. You see it down here too. So based on short-term booms, rather than looking at historical or projected data, a lot of these cultivators are just kind of doing the most that they can. So 2020 saw an increase in canopy size because they thought the businesses were good. And there's this tendency to kind of just hope and pray as they plant all of these new crops in anticipation that there's going to be that demand there. But yet what we're seeing due to either inflation or price pressures on consumer staples, housing, food, everywhere. I mean, that is inflation. And with that pricing pressure, you're seeing changes in consumer behavior. I don't know if that's going to be transitory at all. So I'd probably prepare for that. If you don't have a lower priced SKU, you might want to add that, because consumers in general are going to probably make different decisions on what they buy, especially if you're somebody who uses a lot of cannabis. So an interesting note too from what they're seeing is that during these times, everyone's kind of got the same concept, plan, idea, where they're going to jump on these wholesale platforms and just try to liquidate as much as they can. And then they see how much the next guy is selling for, and they try to beat him by a penny or whatever. And it's a race to the bottom. So that whole commoditization conversation that we've been alluding to seems to be in fact in play right now, as a lot of these people are just going to platforms like Apex Trading, looking for alternative solutions or tools to outbid other people, to undercut other people in order to get their price out, right? It's about freshness. It's about just getting that cash up front so that you can use that for your next project, or just to keep your salary going, keep afloat. A lot of these people are hand to mouth. So, utilizing discounts and everything, a lot from what we've seen, in terms of going to 20 stores on 420. So I'm kind of planning my 420 tour where I do 20 stores on 420. And I know that stores that get 150 people within the first hour versus those that get 150 people midday is discounts. So are you sending them text? Are you offering daily discounts? Are you offering, getting their phone number and data in exchange for every 10 times they come in, they get some kind of extra discount, pre-order discount? All those things are going to be one of the differentiators. And they're using, these producers and processors. And I say that word because in Washington State, we're not vertically integrated. So the retailer is not a part of that. So even if you are vertically integrated, your production team and your brands or processing the grow side, they're all going to be on these platforms trying to sell, trying to use these discounts and codes and everything to liquidate their product as fast as they can, essentially a race to the bottom. And you're able to see these bulk discounts, through platforms like Apex. So all of that is driving sales, but what's the profit at the end of the day? This is just a commodity. And I think that for some people in new emerging markets, need to be able to look at this and know that trend is coming to a state near you. With that, we're going to roll this one up. I'm Josh Kincaid. This is The Talking Hedge. Don't forget to like, share, and subscribe, or don't, and I'm out. Don't forget to smash that like button on your way out and check out these other videos that we've got.